What is going on, everybody? Welcome to The Link. It is yet another Tuesday, and you are here with your fabulous host that you see before you. We want to thank Pyro Media and APLA Health, as well as the CDC, for being our wonderful collaborations that bring you this show every single week for the last few months. And of course, you know, we love Pyro because they come with the graphics, they come with the looks, they come with all of the things that make us look extra special great, aside from the paints and crayons that I try to put on my face. Because this is not natural beauty, honey. This takes work. But let's get into introducing our host. I'm your favorite prevention training specialist that you will ever meet about Swab and Chill. I am Daniel J, and we will start with my other co-hosts, starting with the fabulous curly-headed wonder of light, Mr. Kai. You want to say hi to the people?
I was like, curly head wonder, is that Rogelio or me? Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Smith. I am program coordinator for A Healthy Him, and I also oversee the Swap and Chill program. Hey.
Hi, I am Ty. I am your linkage to care specialist. Currently, until Monday, when I step into my new position as outreach coordinator.
And I am Rogelio. I am the coordinator of Trans Connections.
All I want in life is for all of my curls to do what Rogelio's curl is doing right now, especially that one bobbing for life in the front, giving you that real good bed spring bounce, honey. I don't know what it is about curls, but when I hit 30, my whole curl pattern was like, yeah, I'm done with this being curly stuff, so whatever. But we're going to get right into the show. We're going to pop into our What's Poppin' segment. Now, if you are new to the show, honey, you know, you may not know what this is, but if you are a friend to the show, if you've been watching for any time, you know that this is the time that we drop the tea, the gaga, we find out what is going on in pop culture. Now I do have a little piece of what's popping news that I woke up to this morning that, you know, I had to clutch my invisible pearls that I wasn't wearing. I do have some, but I wasn't wearing them at the moment. And that's this news of Tiger Woods and this crash.
I just found out.
Had back surgery not too long ago, which is why he hasn't been, you know, playing competitively in golf. Mm-hmm. And here we are. And I mean, the car, have you seen the video? Have you seen the footage? Like the car was flipped over, the front was crushed. Like it looked like he purposely just drove off a highway. But apparently, according to sources, allegedly, he was speeding down a highway in, I believe, the Palos Verdes area here in California, and off the car went. But I just, it shook me because I feel like Tiger Woods has such a bad history when it comes to just things that happen to him. You know, things that happen to his personal life, things that happen to his body. I'm just like, you probably need to go sit down and meditate and pray and bring the goodness.
Yeah, it might be time for retirement at this point. Yeah, you know, no, I literally was sitting in the living room because I went to the office this morning. I was sitting in the living room. My grandmother calls me, and everybody's like, elder in their family is always like the tea breaker because that's what they've been sharing for decades and years and centuries. So my grandmother calls me when things happen, and she's like, "Hey, did you see what happened to Tiger Woods? And you would have thought that he was one of our cousins." I was like, "No, I did not." She was like, "Yeah, he was in a car accident. I'm just hoping it's not liquor." And I'm like, Nana, that's how rumors get started. Don't start with that. But yeah, no, I want to send my thoughts and prayers to him and his family. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. Car accidents are tricky. Like they are really, really tough. I remember Tracy Morgan, the comedian, getting into like, 2 or 3 car accidents, like within like a 5-year span. And it's like, I don't know what's going on. We need to start hiring drivers again. And we need to start like having people taking us from point A to point B so that nothing gets all jumbled in between.
Or we just need to stay at home and go nowhere that's not absolutely necessary because, you know, we're still in a pandemic. But in all seriousness, I do, on behalf of The Link, we do send our prayers to Tiger in this time. There hasn't been, from what I've been researching, there hasn't been any updates on his condition, outside of the fact that they said that there's no serious damages. But I mean, judging by the looks of the car, and of course, again, his recent surgeries, I'm sure it's not a pleasant space for him to be in. Yeah. What about you guys? What have you been seeing in your timelines and in your emails and in your updates?
For me, today is the 1-year anniversary of Ahmaud Arbery's murder. So I've been seeing a lot of people talking today just in remembrance of a young man whose life was stolen. And a lot of us saw the video of it being stolen from him. So yeah, a lot of that happening that I've been seeing today. So, you know, we also want to definitely, Tiger, we hope that you're okay, but also we're sending Ahmaud Arbery's family and his loved ones a big, we're here for you, we support you, we see you, and we are still saying his name.
And I do believe that they have started the civil suit in regards to the two gentlemen that were part of his murder. So we'll see where that goes in the coming weeks and months.
And then with a similar-ish topic is today a grand jury actually indicts officers in the Daniel Prude case from New York. So for everyone who doesn't remember this, the Daniel Prude case was a Black man who his family had actually called because he was having a mental kind of breakdown. And by the time the police got there, they only escalated this situation worse, which eventually led to his death. The police were not charged today. The judge and jury said that they did not think that it was sufficient evidence to show that the police were actually the cause of his death. I mean, he dies a week after getting arrested naked, you know, vomits in a spit hood. But, you know, sure, we don't have enough proof. But I think it's just, once again, we're still seeing why, you know, and this doesn't represent the organization. This is, you know, my own personal opinion, why we need to defund the police and send those resources in better places, because this was a man's life who was taken from him because the police officers weren't equipped to handle someone who had mental health needs. So those are the things for me today.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then also to Kai's point really quickly, like he mentioned, you know, these are our beliefs. I'm going to second what Kai said, say our. When you talk about defunding the police, that money goes to someone that would be qualified and trained to de-escalate that situation. And he ultimately probably would still be here right now. So I know some people hear defund the police and get turned off. But when you hear defund the police, also ask questions about what that means, because we could have got out of this situation a lot better. But yeah, no, I agree with Kai. Well, in lighter news, though, I will say I did notice that Megan B with 2 E's Stallion has a new boyfriend, Mr. Pardison Fontaine, backing it up, featuring Cardi B fame. I think they're a gorgeous couple. I love Megan with a tall, handsome man. Pardison, if it don't work out with Megan, give me a call.
But I love me with a
like
tall, handsome man, so I get it.
Me too. I enjoy me with a tall, handsome man too. But I think that it's really, really dope to see, because Pardison's been in the game for a while. I'm not going to say who he ghost writes for, but Pardison's been in the game for a while, writing raps for some of your favorite females. So for him to be dating Megan and the public display of affection after the year or the year and a half that she's had with losing her mother, her grandmother, the shooting, it's really nice to see a Black woman happy in the media, because it's been so much angst towards Black women just in general. So seeing a Black woman flaunt her relationship and be genuinely happy, or at least to the public eye, is a beautiful thing to see. So I support it.
Right. Megan Thee Stallion deserves the world. But speaking of fine men, the thing that's been on my mind since Sunday at least, has been Bolo and this situation with the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Because it was juicy. Those cameras that were there after production left caught enough for me to just be scandalized.
Oh, God.
Mr. Bolo, aka Michael, if ever you need help with costuming, you need someone to just pick up your coins after you perform, I'm available.
I don't want to help you with that, but what I want to help you with, I can't talk about on this show.
I wouldn't mind helping with that either, but I will get it where I can fit in. Okay.
Right.
Check out the kink episode for those details.
Absolutely. Yes. We kind of gave you the introduction to it prior to this episode airing. So yes, definitely check that out.
So done. Well, Riley, what did you think about the whole episode? Because my personal opinion is like,
everybody who knows me knows that I'm kind of a Kenya stan, so I tend to be pretty generous with her and give her like a lot of leeway. I did think it was a bit buzzkilly, but I'm just like, Kenya is asking the questions that we all want to know. If she hadn't done that, then we would have just been in the dark with those, like, you know, behind the scenes clip. I think she made it fun. And like, everybody complaining about it on social media. Like, we all want to know who was in that bedroom with Bolo. Like,
I disagree. I disagree. It should
Maybe
be private and left to the season. It should be private and left to the season. They turned those cameras off to have an actual bachelorette party. And I know if I was a part of a reality show and I said, can y'all leave and turn these cameras off? And it was brought up again the next day on camera about some of the inexplainable things that I would have done with Mr. Michael Bolaware. I don't know if I would have been so gung-ho about that. Like, I'm just putting myself in the other girls'
Here's my thing. When it comes to reality TV and things of that nature, yes, we all like a good gag. We all like a good, piece of hot tea. I think it would have been different if the woman or women who were involved in the extra bedroom scandal, if they mentioned it and then it was, like playful investigation on what actually they did, like the details. I think what bothers me and what are bothering a lot of fans is, Kenya, you were part of the bachelorette party. You were a part of it when the cameras first left. And then for whatever reason, you decided to go upstairs or whatever. I think the issue is we saw you being so playful and in the moment with Bolo. We saw you flirting with Bolo. We saw you doing all of these things. And now it looks like you're really bitter because Bolo didn't choose you to go into the extra bedroom. And you just want to turn something that's very private and very fun into, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, but into some bullshit, basically. You're turning a fun moment that was for your friend into something that really has nothing to do with you and is none of your business. And I don't care what anybody has to say about whether she belongs on the show, whether they like her on the show. The MVP award goes to Miss Candy for shutting that damn mouth. Because when I say that her lips was tight, she said,
I enjoy Candy this season.
I've always liked Candy.
Stays in the dungeon. I mean, I was
I enjoyed her privacy. Kai doesn't know what we're talking about.
Nope.
I enjoyed her privacy.
This was the only episode worth watching this season, anyway, Kai.
That was it. This whole season is boring, Kai. Like, it's not. I mean, I love the activism that Porsha's portraying this season, but outside of that, nobody else really has a storyline. You guys aren't showing up to the front lines. You guys are supporting in other ways, but they're not being documented on the show. Porsha's being arrested like every other episode, and it's like, that's entertaining. It's going to die down after a while, but this was the only episode that was worth any kind of enjoyment. I've been watching Salt Lake City though, so Salt Lake City's been kind of giving me my fix, and this their first season, and I don't even know where Salt Lake City, Utah is. Don't judge me, but I just know it's cold. So I'm like, this is cute. This works. I wouldn't live there.
Definitely going to be watching Salt Lake City. But I do have a question as it pertains to Real Housewives of Atlanta and the situation with Kenya, because it makes me think about the situation that we often hear about and deal with in our community of, being LGBTQIA plus folks, which is this issue of outing. Because that's essentially what Kenya is doing. Like, she's going into someone's private space and she's trying to out a situation. She's trying to out Porsha, saying that Porsha was allegedly the one with Bolo. And for all intents and purposes, Porsha is single. So whether she was or wasn't with Bolo, that's her business. But then you accuse a woman who's in a relationship, engaged, got kids.
Kenya. Kenya's been accused too. So
how do you guys feel about that? That whole idea of outing people, whether it's outing them for their orientation or their personal business?
I'll be very quick with this. It's really, really hard to create a safe space for people to come out when that's the primary goal. So often you hear about people who are on the down low, people who are very, very private. The new word is discreet now. People that are super duper discreet, is because what happens is that you get people a part of a specific community. I'm not going to say the gays or the lesbians do it, but people do it in general, where you want to find out the tea on somebody. So you start asking all of these questions, and then it turns into a discussion piece. And that's not nobody's business to become that. So when I get clients sometimes who aren't out, I understand it. Why come out to a community that's just going to judge you anyway? You know what I mean? So it's a catch-22 almost. I'm not shitting on the community and saying, the community is just all bad. But I do understand why people become so private, because you're asking people, living your truth, become this blah, 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 blah. And it's like, But if I do that, you're going to judge what I do, ask questions about what I do. I can't be bisexual because you're going to tell me that I have to like one or the other more than it's just we're very judgy as a community at times. And I think that Kenya did that on the show. It was like whether you slept with them, you were going to get crucified, and if you didn't sleep with them, I don't think that you're telling the truth. So it's like you can't really win. You can't really win.
I think it started off as fun in the beginning. Like it seemed like, Bolo left at 7 a.m. Who could he have been with? But then after she came up with like, I was down and I heard somebody having sex and I heard F me harder and I heard all these things. Then it becomes like solid accusations where it's just like, you know, they did want the cameras off. And that's another conversation about, you know, you're still filming a reality TV show. So you signed away part of your privacy. And even though the cameras weren't there, they were still able to access the home footage where we saw, you know, Portia and Tanya, or wait, no, it was Portia and Latoya, right?
Latoya,
right. I love Latoya.
Which was a hot moment.
Right, it was.
What bothered me the most, because I went to Bravo TV and looked at the exclusive interviews that they do with the girls after the episode airs, and Kenya was very much like, oh, Bolo was, you know, he's community penis. Like, I wasn't really feeling him. Like, that's really not my thing. She asked for him to
come back out.
Like she gave this whole like I was so not interested.
She was the one that asked him to come back out.
The whole shaming aspect. That she was even like, you slept with a stripper. Like, what's wrong with sleeping with a stripper? Like,
right.
Not only is it the shaming, but it's also the fact that again, you're accusing at least one woman who's in an entire ass relationship.
Right.
Absolutely.
And to be fair, I don't think Kenya ever said Tanya's name. I think that was brought up after. Like,
it was like an insinuation.
Yeah. She just,
but I'll let y'all know this.
It was Portia and somebody else.
If you ever book Bolo for anything, I slept with him. If we're at a thing and you heard any kind of noise, it was me. You don't have to do any kind of investigation. Don't roll the footage. I did it, and I will do it again, and I'm the reason why he left at 7 a.m. the next morning.
Look, I'm about to look up Bolo because I don't know who this person is.
Just go to images and then don't show the viewers because it'll be...
Right.
Oh.
my only issue is that as tall as he is other places, I just don't think that he's like that. I think he's like max at like 5'10". So, you know, for me to be a thick and hefty girl, it's
still taller than me.
Right.
Still taller than me.
You know, it's like
I'm a petite 5'8".
Come on, petite 5'8".
How many of you? Let me ask this question: how many of you would enjoy a penis in the box dungeon style bachelor party? Yes, for all of us. I love it.
The first moment somebody gets engaged here, we're gonna have to throw a huge bachelor.
It'll be Kai. It'll definitely be Kai's gonna be first. It'll definitely be Kai.
It could be you, Ty. You never know.
Either way, we're bringing Bolo.
I'll probably be the stripper at that party.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so one last thing that I want to kind of bring up before we end the segment of What's Poppin' is, I don't know if this has resurfaced or if this is something new, but apparently on Twitter, a lot of people have been going in on Meek Mills for his responding nature and culture. And so they brought up some tweets that he had tweeted concerning Kobe Bryant's wife, where he basically said some disparaging things against Kobe. His wife responded on Twitter, and his response to her was I'm going to go back into my savage space, F your feelings.
Wasn't it like a song lyric or something that he had stated? It was like, and I'm not a Meek Mill fan, but I'm all about rap lyrics, and I know that, and he's from Philly. I don't feel it. But he said something like, "I'm gonna go back and go out with my chopper like Kobe did." But then prior to that, he made a comment like, "She stay on her knees like Kaepernick." This is not rap. This is disrespectful. These are not things that you need to be adding to your songs for shock value. Nobody appreciates people talking about the dead, one, but then also two, the movement. Like at this point, and I'm not a big firm believer of cancel culture, but it could be applied here. I think that 2 strikes you're out. I don't think that you need to be doing any of these lyrics for shock value. It doesn't prove that you're a great rapper. It proves that you can't read the room in my Candy Muse voice.
Well, the reason why people are going ham is because they found that in going through Meek Mill's tweets, they found that when he is confronted by a male, his responses are a little less a little lackluster. They're not as passionate. They're not as savage. And so he recently apologized to Miss Vanessa, and he tweeted, and I quote, "I apologized to her in private earlier today, not to the public. Nothing I say on my page directed to a internet viral moment or the family of a grieving woman. If you care about someone grieving, change the subject."
Okay. All right.
So we should change the subject that you put on the table disrespecting her. Got it. Because it's everybody else's fault, Ted Cruz. It's not yours. Okay, understood.
I mean, I think her response was probably the best response that she could have in such a way that shut him down so easily, but also kept her kind of, she was like, I don't listen to his music, so I don't know, but I feel like he could do better than that. And for
me, it's really, really loud yell. It's not even really music. He's just yelling on a song, and it's like, okay, stop.
Yeah, so I think with her response was great. And it's read the room. I think it's also, I hate when people say things like that, like, if you don't like what I'm talking about, then change the subject. No, now at this point, it is an issue. So bringing up something that is an issue that doesn't really serve any kind of purpose, it's just being hurtful, in my opinion, at this point. Is
like he was being provocative.
Right? Yeah, and then also go ahead. Sorry.
You can make like edgy kind of like lyric, like Cupcake. I'm a huge fan of Cupcake. Like she makes a lot of like edgy lyrics that are just kind of like, oh, I don't know, I should like that, but it's funny, or it's like, shocking. But like with Kobe, it's just too soon, and it's just like, it's like to no end. Like you're not really getting at any point. You're just being rude and like mean to somebody who's like had such a huge impact and whose death is still fresh to a lot of people. So
well, I definitely, in regards to Kobe, anything like that, I don't think that there's ever a good time for you to come back, whether it's too soon, whether it's 2 years, 1 year, 10 years. There's never a good time to say the things that he has said in a tweet, even if it's for a song lyric. But I think that this speaks to the fact that when it comes to women, specifically women of color, more specifically even Black women, that our culture is one where we can say whatever we want to them. But when we step against another male figure, it's not the same energy. And so to Meek Mills, honey, use your pen for something a little bit more positive, like, I don't know, a hit. But other than that, we're going to go to our first commercial break. When we come back, we are going to be discussing Black History Month. We're going to be discussing some people in Black history, specifically some people in LGBTQIA+ Black history that we need to acknowledge. And we're going to have some conversations about some people that we admire, some people that we feel need to have a little bit more attention on them, and just get our own thoughts about Black History Month and how this month has been for us. So we'll be right back. Until then, watch this commercial telling you about what? Swab and Chill.
Hey guys, Ty here from APLA Health, and I got some good news for you.
APLA Health is launching our first ever at-home HIV testing initiative.
As we battle the global pandemic of COVID-19 and all that it entails,
APLA Health is doing what we can to fill the gaps for those who are in need of knowing their status, linking to care, and having safer sex options.
The initiative, officially known as Swab and Chill, will be our virtual hub for those seeking to take an HIV test, receive HIV kits, link into medical care for those who are HIV positive, while also having access to several other programs and services that specialize in harm reduction for HIV infection.
Such services include pregnant PEP information, as well as substance abuse services. Our goal with Swab and Chill is to make HIV testing easily accessible and easy to use within the comfort of your own home.
We provide each client with the AuraQuick at-home testing kit. This kit is a simple test that is done by orally swabbing the gums and waiting 20 minutes for your results.
APLA staff is available to virtually assist you while taking the test, while providing resources and support for those who may test positive.
Maybe you already know your status and you're just low on condoms and lube due to accessibility. No problem. We can also send you one of our safer sex kits right to your front door.
As we strive to keep our community safer and well informed, your privacy is also a high priority.
All packaging will appear from APLA Health. Our over-the-phone assessments are quick, easy, and secure, so you can feel safe in sharing your results with us and asking any questions that you may have.
If you or someone that you know is interested in having one of our at-home testing kits mailed to you, or you just want more information on what Swab and Chill can provide, please call one of our team members at 323-329-9713, or just email us.
Come swab and chill with 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 us. Come swab and chill with us. I love it. We definitely need a new video, a new commercial. I don't want to be the one to edit it though. So
no, I get that. We should definitely have a new commercial with just Rogelio.
Just me. No.
Come on. Yes.
Those 30 seconds. The reason why I say come swab and chill with us is because that was like my 20th take and I like messed up at the very end. So like the last thing I want to do is an entire commercial where I have to be on point.
But we love it. It's one of the things that we love about that commercial. Well, we're going to get into our main topic today. You know, February for many years, we all know has been Black History Month. It is the month that we celebrate Black history. We have gone to the Martin Luther King parades. We have seen the special programs in our schools. We, see the posts that people put on their timeline. But part of the conversation that we're going to be talking about is Black history then and now. And we're going to be talking about things that we don't always see when it comes to Black history, specifically queer Black history. And so my first question for my wonderful co-hosts is, when it comes to queer Black history, do you feel like we are still stuck in a space where we aren't doing our job to make people aware of the queer Black history that we have?
So this is a tricky question, because this is something that I actually thought about today preparing for the show. Is
Kai, are you going somewhere with the satchel?
Do you have a bag on?
Yes.
I thought it was like a cross bag. I was like,
she's going places.
I was like, after he answers this question, she's leaving.
Right? She's like, I gotta go, honey.
Journey to take you. Get ready. But the question being, like, for queer Black history, are we not pushing for it? And I don't feel like we should, right? When we talk about queer history, often we see, especially when we talk about women's rights movements or civil rights movements, if they are queer and they're not Black, we see them heavily. But the moment someone is Black, it seems like, and it might be a Black community thing, it might be just kind of a general population, we don't see their queerness. So an example I have for this is James Baldwin in I Am Not Your Negro. In that film, obviously we know a lot of people know James Baldwin for civil rights. But a lot of people also don't realize James Baldwin often dealt with theories of bisexuality, dealt with, kind of these queer theories in a lot of his writings. But for some reason, we like to glaze over that point. And especially, I always think it's funny when you see like hoteps or people who are anti-feminist, or anti-LGBTQ quote James Baldwin. And it's like, do you not know who you're quoting? And so it's one of those things. It's like, this is our history. And yet, we don't tell people about it. And I think often in the Black community, it's because queerness has always been really, really something that we've tried to hide or, not let people see.
I think it's interesting when we talk about James Baldwin because, he's definitely one of my favorite authors and orators. I love to see, the footage of him, having debates and conversations, with the Cambridge University. That was a huge, historical conversation that he had. But when it comes to him addressing certain things like bisexuality, a lot of people feel like James Baldwin spoke about those things, but spoke about it from a very them space. Like, let's, You know, we need to advocate and we need to understand them. Never really taking a stance and coming out and saying, I am bisexual, never saying that I am a part of this community. It was more so, I'm fighting for, you know, Black folks. I'm fighting for folks who are different. I'm fighting for this, that, and the other. And so there are a lot of people who feel like when it comes to James Baldwin, it's a bittersweet moment when we talk about queer Black history, because he never really outwardly, you know, made that claim. Now, obviously, we have stories and we have, you know, testimonials from people that say that, you know, they had relations with James, you know, the wonderful days in the streets of Paris, in a particular hotel that I'm not gonna name, that's very famous. But I do feel like when it comes to queer Black history, I feel like as Black individuals, period, we fight this idea of erasure. You know, we fight not only from a Black space being erased from American history, but then as queer people being smudged out from the white gay history, you know, where there's this erasure of like, we just don't exist. We didn't do anything. You know, you're going to get your Mr. Milks, you know, but you're not going to get your Marsha P. Johnson.
I'm sorry to chime in really quickly, but to Kai's point, I think that everything that you're saying is 100%, but I don't think that we do ourselves a due diligence by upholding that history. Like, it's not something that the community looks at where, I mean, I remember we had like an art gallery at APLA Health, just older queer art, and no one came to check it out. Like, we had Black queer individuals there, and of course us as the employees and staff, we thought it was the coolest thing ever. But the youth and other people that were there didn't take the time out to actually go in and see what these pieces look like and who made these pieces. I don't think that as a community, and I don't want to speak for the whole community, just from my perspective, I don't think that as a community we do our due diligence by upholding our history. I don't think that we are in tune with it. A lot of people didn't realize that, you know, for the Stonewall riot, that was Marsha. You know what I mean? People just assumed that a whole bunch of gays got together and started throwing bricks, and that's not how that happened. So it's weird to me because, you know, people don't want, from what I see, people who are identified Black and queer don't really pay attention to those things. It's kind of like, yeah, we've made strides as gay people, we've made strides as Black people, but people don't blend those together and be like, what is the history of this? Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think you make a lot of sense.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk out of the side of my neck. That's what I've seen, just based off of some of the stuff that we've done.
I think what you're kind of hitting at is this intersectionality of Black and queerness that often happens.
Yeah.
And when we talk about things like 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance, it's almost impossible to talk about any Black artist from the Harlem Renaissance and not mention the word queer. It's so hard because so many queer, you know, artists that we kind of look at too for this Black cultural moment of the 1920s through the Great Migration from South to, you know, Harlem, New York area, Black queer artists. I mean, even one of our first drag queens in the Washington D.C. area, like one of the first recorded drag queens, William Dorsey Swan, was a Black man, not just a Black man. He was a slave, so he grew up in slavery. I got out of slavery and became a drag queen, became one of the first drag queens in DC and was very, very popular. But these are kind of things in history we go over, and it's that intersectionality. And especially with
to say that too, and then also to answer Daniel's initial question, like, we are the ones that aren't upholding these gems in our history. Like, we're the ones that are not honoring these people who came before us, who paved, you know, ways for us to be creative and expressive. We're the ones not doing that. It almost comes off counterproductive to assume that white people are going to do it. You know what I mean? They'll do it when it becomes a trend. But what about now with the people who identify as Black and queer? Why aren't we doing our research to kind of see, you know, who did what, and then also acknowledging that? I think that, yeah, the intersectionality portion of it can flip some heads up, but I think that, you know, as a community, we probably should do better. Not Kai, because Kai knows everything, but we probably should do better as it pertains to knowing our history. Like, I learned things at work sometimes through Kai, And sometimes I'm sitting there like, well, damn, why didn't you know that? And it's like, I think that we should challenge ourselves to know these things, as Black queer people.
So,
go ahead.
I want to make a statement, and then I have a question. So my statement is, I feel like for people who, oh God, this is probably going to be so problematic. I feel like for those of us who have to struggle with Blackness from a mixed space or a non-Black space, a lot of times we research harder to have the information about certain Black history and certain queer Black history because it's part of, I have to prove my Blackness.
I agree with that, but that's problematic. We both want to get these blows. I agree with that 100%.
So I also feel like that there is a generational gap in, I don't necessarily think that our generation just doesn't care about queer Black history, but do they know it? Do they know where to look? Have they been told these stories? A lot of this is not recorded in a textbook. So the only way that you're going to hear it is you're going to hear it through the mouths and the stories of the generation that came before you. And let's be very honest, there is a large part of the generation that came before us. They want to block that out. They don't want to think about it because it brings up loss. It brings up trauma.
And not only do they want to block that out, wife, not only do they want to block that out, they also don't want to, they also do not want to talk to us. They don't. They refuse to have conversations with us because they don't think that we would either understand it or appreciate it. And that's where the issue comes in.
Right. I think that's kind of, that's kind of like what's missing in the LGBT community, like that intergenerational like dialogue. I feel like it tends to be very divided. And I think going back to the intersectionality point, I think one of the hard things in making sure that a lot of these figures are remembered is the fact that people are often forced to choose between their identities. Like, am I going to either be, stand in my Blackness or in my queerness? Because one of them isn't going to be so accepted in one of the other spaces. Which, bringing it back to like Marsha P. Johnson, you mentioned, or like Miss Major, all these like Black trans women who are so influential in not only advancing civil rights for trans women, but the entire LGBT community and the Black community. But it's like, they're often forgotten because it's like, well, which identity are you going to choose to like represent? And even like when you think of characters like Bayard Rustin, who was like Martin Luther King's right-hand man, it's like, well, he's not really talked about in the context of being queer because it was very much like one or the other. And like,
to pick that too, and that's
right. And like intersectionality came around in the 90s, so now thankfully we live in an era where people are able to understand that these like systems are complex and interwoven with each other, and that like an intersectional approach is what we need. But yeah, I think it's interesting that we don't remember a lot of these figures.
And I think
that was very well. That was very well said, Rogelio. You had me.
For the Black community, especially Black queer community, particularly, and just queer community in general, most people who were, alive in the 80s were hit hard by HIV, and we know, especially the Black community. We say this all the time. At APLA Health that we lost a generation of people that we're never going to get back. So oftentimes when we talk about this intergenerational divide, or even things like our history, we struggle with it because most of those people aren't here to tell us the stories, right? The Black community, often the Black queer community, doesn't have their elders. I mean, even, we always say trans women are the ones who are really moving the culture. Black trans women are the ones moving the culture, moving kind of new ideas and activism and things like that. But what's the average life expectancy of a Black trans woman, right? We don't get elders in this queer community for Black people often. And it could be because of HIV, and, for trans women, because of the violence that they face every single day, or even kind of what we were talking about earlier, just people aren't comfortable or have to force to choose an identity. So that's really, I think, Rogelio, you really, really hit the head on the nail. And for anyone out there who is looking for Black, queer history, here is a little website for you to go to. It's called www.blackpast.org. If you type in LGBTQ or pride or uplifting LGBTQ, you'll find this entire page. of just lists of Black queer people's names or queer allies or anything like that. You click on it and you can learn all the history you want right there. Coming from a nerd.
We love Professor Kai.
So here's the thing that I want to say about the generational piece. You know, one of my favorite quotes from a movie called The Joy Luck Club. There's a character, she's talking to her daughter, and she said, you know, it's often sad sometimes in a family, whether we're like stairs, whether going up or going down, we tend to all go the same way. You know, there's never really any change. And so I don't want to sit here and say that the older generation doesn't want to have a conversation with the younger generation. And I'm not going to say that the younger generation doesn't want to hear it. I think on both ends, there's some truth to that. But I do want to call to action my generation, the generation in the middle, you know, that 30 to 45 age range of individuals, because I feel like we witnessed the older generation go through what they went through. But we can turn around to those that are younger than 30 who didn't witness that. And there is a conversation to be had that I think my age group should really be responsible in bridging that together, because we get it. We understand it. Like, we understand the importance of the older generation and listening to those stories and being able to explain to them, yo, not all young people are, you know, F-ups, but also looking at the younger generation and saying, yo, we're not trying to tell you how to live, but there is some truth and some wisdom you can gain and borrow if you just quiet down a little bit, not be so defensive, not be so aggressive, or, you know, or passionate,
or just like
listen.
Honor your history, because like the reason why so many people have the privilege to be able to not worry about, you know, learning about this, like before HIV activism basically wasn't a choice, because it was like we were all in this together because we all may be dying soon. Like everybody thought that they were going to die eventually. So I think that it's about reminding people that, like, you know, these are things that are important and that deserve to be, you know, talked about.
And also, it's recognizing the people that we have today, right? Black history is being made.
Absolutely.
So I know we often like we don't have our heroes. Well, find people today, find activists today, find artists, like real artists, not just, you know, whoever's on the top 40, but find painters, find sculptors, find writers, poets, anything. What I do is I love Twitter, because Twitter gives you the widest variety of access to
it does. I get all of my news from Twitter, because Twitter is actually like on the dot.
Artist, any photographer, any painter, anime drawer, anything like that. And you really can see how large and vast and how much history is being made in the Black community right now. I mean, even think about Lil Nas X, a Black man who is openly gay, has the highest selling country song.
A barb.
Openly bisexual.
Bisexual, but he's a queer Black person on a chart that, for all intents and purposes, most of the people who listen to it don't want to hear him or even see his face or, you know, have him exist. That's history, right? And I think with the new generation, I'm excited to see younger generations, especially younger Black queer people, really come into their own and like make themselves known. So, and
come into their own sooner too. We're seeing this new generation, you know, say no to a lot of the bullshit that like previous generations that were coming up that were queer and Black, you know, couldn't say no to, because that was the norm. You know what I mean? This is what was right. This is what this was joked about, and now you can have conversations about why something is offensive and why we won't laugh at that. I want to bring up someone that I enjoy right now, who's young, you know, but he's ultimately going to make history. The comedian Ricky Thompson. He's on Instagram living his truth. He's loud. He's gay. It's adorable, and he lives his truth, and it's beautiful to see. I can't wait to see where some of these young content makers are going to be in the next 20 years. You know, just elevating on their platform, which is going to be really, really nice to see when I'm old and sitting down telling my grandchildren that that's gay.
You know, it's interesting. I was on Clubhouse. Y'all know I love my Clubhouse app. I'm on there for hours. But I was on Clubhouse and I was in a room, and the title of the room was speaking about the LGBTQIA community shaming cis hetero Black men, and saying that, of course, there was this attack on cis straight Black men. And anytime I go into a space like that, you know, I always go in with my resolve and with my peace, because I know I'm moving into toxicity. But one of the things that I find interesting, you know, and Ty, I believe you and Kai said it earlier, when we talk about Black history and when we talk about queer Black history, you know, it's always important to really assess your present. And I think so often it's interesting to me how those who are not a part of the queer community, whether Black or not, they never merge that intersectionality of being Black and queer. Because I feel like when people talk about like this agenda, this queer agenda, which exhausting.
Yeah.
I really feel like a lot of our heterosexual, cisgendered Black community members, when they think LGBTQ, in their mind, they see white. And it becomes a Black versus white thing. It doesn't become, you know, this thing about like, I'm also, again, erasing another Black face or another brown face. And so, of course, I went into that room and I spoke my piece. I got on my pedestal and I had to educate some people that were in the audience. I wasn't really focused on the people that were on stage speaking, because I was like, y'all minds are already made up. But it brings me to this question that I have for you all. When we talk about Black history, queer Black history, and the making of that history, what are some things, what are like one or two things that you personally hope to contribute for the future of what is going to be history?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, one, I wanted to say really, really quickly before I answer. One, thank you for going into that space and speaking your truth, because that's important. But then also, thank you for creating a space for Black queer creatives to even, you know, have conversations and learn the business and ask questions that our white counterparts or whoever else might laugh at us for not knowing. Daniel hosts the Black Queer Chat Room, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It's a great opportunity for people who are trying to make content to have conversations with people who are doing it. So one, thank you for adding that to your history. But I definitely think that at the end of the day, I want the work that I do in HIV care to be not acknowledged, but to be known. I want people to know that I am a resource for those things. And then also, I mean, I make music, so also the creative content that I make, hopefully someone listens to it somewhere and is just like, oh, wow, you know, I have these same feelings, and, you know, I get to identify with this person, and hit me up on Instagram because I will respond. So, yeah, just hopefully being I don't even want to be like a force or like a presence or an idol in that type of space. Just being able to be recognized for my work, and hopefully someone will sit there and find it beneficial.
Kai, what about you? Because I have a specific question for Rahel.
For me, ultimately, you know, I always think about like when I leave, if it's my last day on earth, what do I want to be known for? And I'm actually a pretty simple person. I just want to kind of leave the world a little bit better. So if that means I helped one Black person, one Black queer person, if they can look back and think, you know, I'm really glad that I met Kai, or I'm really glad that I met him, then great. I want someone to look,
I'm glad.
But I also recognize too, when we talk about Black history, I don't want my face to be Black history, right? Just because, you know, I talk about this all the time, and a lot of people get on me like, you're always mentioning your privilege. I do that to point out, you know, I'm very proudly Black, but I also recognize my privilege, and Black history oftentimes kind of looks like this, and it shouldn't, right? Not all of Black history should look like this. I mean, some of our favorites are light-skinned, and there's so many more options that we have. So, but yeah, I just want to make the world a better place.
Rahel, I definitely
Bob and chill with us.
Right.
Rahel, I definitely want to hear your response to the question, but I also want to add to your question, being someone who's not Black, someone who is part of a Latin heritage. Because there's so little, I think, even in that space, that queer history is just completely obliterated and or hidden. So for Black history, as an ally, how would you want to help create that history moving forward, but also for the Latin community from a personal space? Like what is your hope to kind of contribute to the creating of history in the future?
Right, for sure. So I think that for that, I snapped. The way I see it is that, like, similarly to Kai, I think it's super important to create platforms for other people, because I think with that issue of like Black queerness within the Latinx community, you know, within the community, there are also Black people, and Black Latinx people are never platformed or never, you know, talked about. And so it's about starting that conversation. And I think about addressing the conversations that need to be had within my community. I think when I was younger, I definitely struggled with like, well, I'm knowledgeable about all these issues and I really care about them, so I should be able to talk about them just as much. And I think I am able to talk about them. It's just about finding your audience and the fact that, you know, I don't be making these issues or arguments to other Black people. I need to be making these arguments to my own community, because we still have a lot of work to do with our anti-Blackness and all that stuff. And I also realized that I come from a privileged position, not only as a non-Black person, but somebody who has like a background in education, or not in education, but comes from an educated background. I also come from a community where Black history was super emphasized in my curriculum from a very young age. And so I'm just like lucky to have that with me, but I have to acknowledge that some people don't. And some people really may not know just the history of racism in our country. So I think it's about creating platforms for people and starting those conversations at the level that I think is appropriate for me to do so. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'll answer my own question. As someone who is a literal creation of Afro-Latinness, being Black and Mexican, my hope is that I can create space to help the Black community heal from the inside out. And I say that because I do agree with Kai that, yes, I am Black, but this is not what the world should always see and know of Black history. It shouldn't always be light-skinned with pretty hair, you know, or socially palatable with European features and things of that nature. But I also recognize and acknowledge that within the Black community, there is so much division and hurt and trauma as it pertains to things like colorism, as it pertains to really being able to own and have and express one's Black identity, who may or may not look phenotypically Black. And so my goal is to know when to speak, know when to give the space to someone else who needs that space and can use their voice in a better way, but to also, you know, stir some shit up, you know, within our community, to understand that if you're going to advocate for Black life, if you're going to advocate for Black history, it has to be all of it. It cannot be just the part of it that you connect to or that you want to acknowledge. And so that has been something that has, you know, been a personal battle for me, you know, because I hear a lot of people when they say, you know, I'm Black first. Even when we talk about queer Blackness, I'm Black first. And unfortunately, my Blackness is not seen first, just because of the way that I look and the way that I present. And so I hope to contribute to the history of Blackness, the space of healing and the space of understanding, and really breaking down that inner microaggressive structure that was embedded into our community eons ago.
Right.
So, yeah.
If I could also just quickly add one thing, sorry to do it after that amazing close, Daniel.
You're
but
fine.
Like,
you're wonderful.
But like part of what comes with the privilege, part of what comes with the privilege is also the fact that like people who are non-Black are much more willing to hear about these issues coming from somebody like me or coming from somebody who is more palatable. That's why white people often are able to have these large platforms where they talk about racism. So it's about like, you also can't stay silent as a person of color. So that's been part of my journey, is figuring out where exactly my efforts make most sense to go, where my efforts, will make the most change in a way that makes sense. So yeah.
Well, I want to thank all of my co-hosts for contributing to this conversation. I think that it's definitely a conversation that needs to continue. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our fabulous
They
hour.
only give us an hour, y'all. Where you want to
flew by. It flew by.
An hour.
So in these last 2-3 minutes that we have before we have to end the show, who is a Black queer person that you all know of and respect and want to bring attention to as we end this show on Black History Then and Now? And let's start with Ty.
I got two. Terry Smith and Dante Morrison. I think that, it starts where we are. You know what I mean? We've been able to be assisted by people who have been advocating for the end of this epidemic and putting their bodies and their thoughts and their ideas on the front lines to see to it that we do. So I definitely I will honor Dante and Terry today.
Awesome.
Oh, it's me. Well, I want to shout out. I'm sorry, I'm like looking up the specific name. But there is somebody I follow on Instagram named, not on Instagram, on Twitter named Deshawn. They're a non-binary person, always speaking about Black issues, queer issues. They were involved in the protests that were going on, the George Floyd protest out of Atlanta. And I think they always have amazing perspectives on things. Similarly, I would also recommend Justin Jay on YouTube. He does a lot of like reality TV show reviews, but in a way that's actually like socially aware, which I find super duper unique. So yeah, definitely shouting out those two amazing creators.
Awesome.
Okay, so I have two. One of them is for history, for someone that we've already talked about. It'll be Mr. or William Dorsey Swan, one of our first Black or first drag queens ever. Second one is someone that I actually do know personally, who does hair for drag queens. His name is Malcolm Marquez. Malcolm is a Black creator. Malcolm does wonderful, amazing wigs. It is art. You have seen Malcolm's work. If you're watching Drag Race right now, you have seen Malcolm's work. If you watch Drag Race, you have seen Malcolm's work. If you have looked at Miss Tina Shea or Tinashe's album cover, you have seen Malcolm's work. Queer people are changing the game right now, even from things like hair. So those are who I'm shouting out today.
And mine are going to be from a historical space. One of my favorite singers in history who is no longer with us. Her name is Nell Carter. Most people do not know that she was a queer woman, and when she passed, both of her children that she adopted were left with her domestic partner, Miss Ann. And so she was a vibrant life force with an incredible voice and a very tragic story. But I do honor Nell. And for someone that I know personally in my own life, I want to honor a beautiful, Black, intelligent, incredible trans woman by the name of Shar Josell. She is a journalist. She is a multimedia maven. And when I tell you that she walks into spaces not only equipped with intelligence and wisdom and experience, but she walks in with grace and integrity. And so I look forward to the day where we are honoring her on so many platforms for the work that she has done and the work that she continues to do. And with that, I want to thank you all for watching The Link. Make sure that you tune in every week right here on the APLA Prevention page, as well as the Healthy Him page, every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And until next week, we are the co-hosts of The Link. Bye, guys.
Yes, season 2, I'm getting a new hat.